have a very beautiful conversation with Tressalyn. I reached out to her after seeing her birth video of her fourth child on Instagram. It was amazing to see such a force of energy move through her body as her baby was being born, but I'll let her tell that story. What I will say is, Tressalyn had her first baby within a hospital setting and was harmed due to, in my opinion, medical malpractice with the deliverance of an epidural that she didn't even want. Tressalyn also had an unconsented episiotomy and suffered greatly in the immediate postpartum time due to this hospital neglect. She then goes on to have her next 3 babies in the comfort of her own home, and with each birth, learned something new about her strength and power as a woman and a mother. Please enjoy Tressalyn's stories, as they are very inspiring to hear of a woman truly claiming back what was stolen from her and fully trusting in her capability to birth. And lastly, I want to add that submissions are always open for you to speak within this movement. If you are an Indigenous woman or a woman of color and have wanted to share your birth stories on a platform that celebrates you for who you are and the birth choices you've made, please reach out to me or fill out the submission form at primalwomanportal.com/movement. It only takes a few minutes, and I'm always looking for mothers to share their birth stories or women who are working within the field of the female continuum to share their work. All information can be found within the show notes below. Hello, Tressalyn. Thank you so much, and welcome to the Free Birthing in Color movement.
Hi.
I'm so happy that you're here. Like I said, your story, when we were talking before, your story is one that really needs to be shared, and I'm so grateful I stumbled upon it as I was searching through Instagram. So yeah, I'm very grateful that you put that video out for us to see and that we could get connected in that way.
You're welcome, and thank you for your words.
No worries. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what is your ancestry and lineage that you're passing on to your children?
Okay. So my grandmother on my father's side, she's Native American, and I believe both of her parents were as well.
Mm.
Her husband, my dad's father, he's African American. So on my dad's side, I'm basically a mix of African American, Native American. And on my mom's side, she is Irish and German. So I'm basically mixed. I just like to break it down black and white. But if you want to be technical, I have like 4 or more um, different ethnicities in my bloodline.
Yeah, wow. I love that. And that's why I love asking this question, is because there is so much diversity now within um, the women and mothers that I speak to. So it's really cool to have that awareness that, yeah, that's your family line and your family history. So thank you for sharing that. And then the second question I would love to ask is, where does your motherhood journey begin?
It kind of began when I was younger. I've always been the responsible friend, the mom of the group. And I always knew that I wanted children. It's funny because when I was younger, I used to say to myself, I definitely want at least 2, a boy and a girl, and at max 4, and I want a pair of each. And that's kind of exactly what I ended up getting.
Mm.
So I felt like that was like just magical within itself. But it all really just began about 6 years ago. My son, he'll be 5 in a few days on the 25th.
Mm.
My pregnancy with him, it started like most pregnancies do in America.
Mm.
I was uneducated. Um, I didn't really know much about free birthing, home birthing, stuff like that, but it did intrigue me. So the first thing that I really did, I kind of like asked my doctor about water birthing and natural birthing, and he kind of shut it down almost
Mm.
immediately,
Okay.
right? So like I asked him about a water birth, like, how can I go about a water birth if I wanted that? And he was like, it's very unsanitary to do a water birth. Why would you want to do that?
Mm.
And he was like, that's just not natural. It's unheard of. And I'm like, how whenever they have birthing centers that do that. So I kind of just ignored him and I asked another doctor and they kind of said the same thing. They were just like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to turn down an epidural when you can
Mm.
have it, right there if you need it? And I'm like,
That's
okay,
terrible.
it is.
And like,
But in that mindset that I was in back then, I was vulnerable and I just kind of
mm,
listened to it. You know what I mean? Like they're a doctor, the doctor's
mhm,
always right. That's the mentality that I had.
mhm,
Um, so I went to every single doctor's appointment.
mm,
I took every single last test that they asked me to take. Um, I basically did everything that they wanted me to do. Fun fact, I am RH negative,
okay.
and my first was A positive.
Uh-huh.
So our blood didn't mix, and
Mhm.
they recommended that I get the RhoGAM shot,
Right.
which I did. I literally did everything that these people told me to do.
Okay.
It wasn't until 39 weeks where they were kind of pressuring to induce me because like for the past 3 appointments before then, my
Mm,
blood pressure was high.
mm,
And they were like, "Oh, you're high risk for preeclampsia
mm,
and seizures during birth, so we should induce you and keep an eye on you and things like that."
mm.
And when I tell you it was a lot of pressure on me, it was a lot of pressure on me. So I just kind of went with it.
And
I
I
was also
just, sorry, I
like,
just want to interrupt and just quickly say this for people that are listening, especially first-time mothers. It is very normal for blood pressure to rise near the end of pregnancy. So when
yeah.
doctors are like, you're gonna get preeclampsia and your blood pressure is so high, we need to induce, it's such a lie. And it's really unfortunate that so many women go through, failed inductions, terrible inductions that lead to unnecessary cesareans because of that, when it's totally normal for a woman's blood pressure to rise nearing the end of pregnancy. So I just want to say that for anyone that's listening, that maybe their doctor's telling them this and they are trying to fearmonger them into something they don't want to do. It's like, don't listen to it.
And I could add to that and say that my blood pressure went up with my other ones as well towards the end. And I also have friends whose blood pressure went up.
Mm,
It's normal.
mhm,
Trust me, I know it's
yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
But so I kind of just went along with it, right?
Mhm.
It was a lot of pressure on me
Yeah.
because he was the first grandchild. He was the
Oh.
first nephew to everybody. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone was just ready to meet him. I was ready to meet him. So I just kind of went along with it and told them, yeah, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I let them induce me with Pitocin.
Okay.
And when I say that it was the most excruciating, like of all my births, even a breech birth, it
Mm.
was.
Oh
It
gosh.
was very intense for me.
Yeah.
Um, and labor, it didn't last as long as I thought it would. It was actually very quick, but it was very, very painful.
Okay.
I was induced around 7 p.m. and it didn't start kicking in until 11 p.m. And I ended up birthing at 8 a.m. the next day.
Oh wow, that is pretty, yeah.
Yeah, it was progressive. Um, so like the labor and everything was okay.
Mm.
I just kind of laid there and went through it, didn't know what to expect.
Mm.
And just kind of dealt with it. I spent a lot of my time rocking.
Mm.
I didn't get up a lot because I felt like I wasn't allowed to,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Being in a hospital, you don't really know what the rules are. Plus, like they strap you down to the monitor and you got to walk around with your IV. So it's just like I don't even want to walk around. I feel like I'm tied down, so I might as well just lay here and go through it.
Aw.
Um, and I didn't have any like women in the room with me because I wanted to do it alone. I felt like I was too vulnerable to have someone in the room with me.
Mm.
Um, and that kind of caused like some drama stirring up too. So that kind of added on to the stress of the birth. Overall, it was very traumatizing. But when it came down for me to push, the doctor gave me 2 chances to push. And then he cut me open. He said, I'm going to go ahead and cut you now and cut me open.
No way.
Performed an episiotomy on me without my consent. Like he just said he was going to do it and he did it.
That's so
And
cool.
hold on, let me backtrack a little. I did take the epidural.
Mm.
Now, it was one thing. it kind of agitated me because, like, I told every nurse that came in there, I don't want the epidural, I don't want drugs, I don't want anything. Every time they came in, they kept asking me over and
Mm-hmm.
over and over
Yeah.
again, like
They
they were
wear
trying to
you
press.
down.
I was 8 centimeters when they gave me epidural, and according to Google and them and whoever you want to say it's up to, they're not even supposed to inject you with that past 4 centimeters. They
Mm-hmm.
waited until I was 8 centimeters to give me an epidural. They missed my spine.
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes. But I didn't realize until afterwards. So once he cut me, I was like kind of in and out of it because they also gave me opioids. So I
Oh.
was just like very just not aware of what was going on with my body. All I knew was that I was numb and I couldn't move from the waist down.
Mm,
And I can kind of hear what was going on, but I was like in and out. I guess it was kind of part of the birth trance plus the drugs that kind of like had me in a
mhm.
different state of mind to where I just didn't know
Yeah.
what was going on.
Wow.
But I feel like it was very like sinister to have a birth like that. Like just experience something like that.
Oh
Like
my
you're not in your
goodness. Yeah, that's incredibly sinister. No woman should have to go through that. That sounds horrific. I'm so sorry that that happened to you.
It's
Oof.
fine. It's over with. It
Yeah.
happened. And honestly, having the other births afterward, it kind of made up for it. Like I
Mhm.
proved the strength that I have within me
Yeah.
and what other women have in them too.
Absolutely. Yeah, but it's just, that your story right there is so common that women, get forced into an induction that they never needed. The nurses come into the rooms time and time again. We've got an epidural, 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 where they wear you down to the point where you're just like, okay, fine, I'll take it because you want them to stop asking you more so then you actually want it. And then this doctor unconsentingly cuts your body when he didn't even give you time to even try to get your baby out. Like
Right.
that system is just so disgusting, like you said, and insidious and just like no mother, no first time mother, no like 10-time mother, it doesn't matter. Like no woman should ever have to go through that as she is
Right.
trying to bring her child into the world. That's
Right.
crazy that that's
And when I
acceptable.
thought I'm sorry. Go ahead. When I thought everything was over, it got worse because, like I
Mm,
said, they missed my spine. So once
mm,
everything was said and done, after you birth in the room, they move you to your stay room where you stay like overnight or two, just so that they can observe, right?
mm,
Um, it was a few hours after they moved me into my stateroom where I realized I couldn't turn my head. I couldn't lift it up and down. It hurt me to hold my baby to
mm,
breastfeed. It hurt me to like chew and to talk, like to move my jaw. Like this
mm,
whole area was just bad.
mm,
And I kept telling them something is wrong. Something is very wrong. Like I feel terrible. Like this is a headache. I don't get headaches. I've never gotten a headache before
mm.
then. And now I get them all the time.
Wow.
But I had never really gotten headaches before that had happened. And I'm like, something is very wrong. Like this is just not
Mm,
right. And he kept giving me Flexeril and ibuprofen, a
okay.
muscle relaxer and some pain reliever. And
Mm,
he just kept telling me, "Oh, it's gonna go away. You'll be fine." I was not fine.
yeah.
Like it was excruciating. Like I got so depressed at one point. It was in the middle of the night. I was breastfeeding my baby, and I just bawled out crying because it hurt so bad. Like just to have something in my hand.
Mm.
And they came in, and he gave me more medicine, and then he released me the next day.
Oh my God.
I went home, and for an entire week after leaving the hospital, I was dealing with this pain until I finally went in. They ran some tests on me and they diagnosed me with a spinal headache, which is the worst headache that you can ever have in your life. And this is words from a doctor. Like, this is the
Mm,
worst headache. It's worse than a migraine.
mm,
And if I would have left it untreated, prolonged, it could have caused more damage, even neurological damage, nerve damage. It could have caused all kinds.
whoa.
And then he tried to slap preeclampsia on it. He was like, "Oh, you also have preeclampsia, so we're gonna need to keep you here for 3 days to observe."
Mm,
They ended up doing another, like, it was a blood transfusion, but it was via epidural, if that makes sense. So like they had to do another epidural to
Yeah.
get blood and to transfuse it back into my spine. Like it was a weird procedure, and I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me. But whatever y'all got to do to make this go away, please do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very pissed because I knew they did something wrong. As
Yeah.
they were administering the epidural, my right leg went numb and then it
Mm.
began to shake involuntarily. Like I wasn't moving it, it was just
Yeah.
shaking. And I told my husband that I was like, my leg is shaking, my leg is shaking. He's like, what are you talking about? It's like
Mm.
I was like in and out of it. I was like
Yeah.
slurring my words. I probably wasn't even saying what I just said. I was probably saying something else. But
Yeah.
I was trying to tell him like my leg is shaking. So it was like from jump, I was trying to tell
Mm.
them that something was wrong, and they just kept
Mhm.
giving me drugs and pills
Yeah.
and hoping it
Just
would go away, but it didn't.
yeah, just ignoring you and just, oh, she's just a hysterical woman. Oh, she just had a baby. She doesn't know what's going on, you know? That's
Yes.
crazy. And then of course they try and say like, "Oh, you have preeclampsia." They won't admit their fault. Like they did this terrible thing to you and then they never just say like, "We're really sorry we did this. We should have listened." It's always, "Oh, you're the one that's broken." It's ugh.
Yep. Or here's a better explanation for what's going on with you. And I even Googled it after the fact. The
Mm,
symptoms were similar between preeclampsia and a spinal headache. So of course
mm,
they would kind of like
mm.
throw it out and be like, "Oh no, it wasn't that. It was this."
No, totally. Yeah.
I really hate that. Honestly, I feel like there's a time and a place for doctors, but a
Mm.
lot of the times they just have uneducated guesses.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah.
So after that traumatizing experience, I
Mm.
promised myself I would never birth in a hospital again.
Right.
At that point, I actually didn't want to have kids anymore. Like it kind of made me like, I don't even want to have children if this is what I have to go through again.
Right. And what was
And
your postpartum like with that baby? Like after that first
depression,
week when you got home and had relief from that spinal headache?
depression.
Oh.
It started in the hospital that night when I bawled out crying, and
Mm.
it followed me. It continued to follow me.
Mm-hmm.
There was just so much around birth that I wasn't educated about, but I was pushed towards, like,
Mm.
don't kiss the baby, don't come over for the first few weeks. And if you do, bring me food, clean my house. A
Mm.
lot of people were like, "Oh, I can help you with the baby." And I'm like, "I don't need help with the baby. I just need help. Like, I need you to cook,
Mm-hmm.
to clean for me." And I was also pressured into like giving my baby up. So like I tried to breastfeed for the first 6 weeks.
Mm.
And then like I was pressured to give formula. So like I started giving formula and then I stopped breastfeeding altogether. So
Mm.
it was just a lot of pressure, just unnatural things. Like usually when you give birth to a baby, you're supposed to just cling to that baby for the first few weeks.
Yeah.
Nobody should be holding the baby, kissing the baby,
Yeah.
doing all this extra stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so it was a bad experience. It
Mm.
wasn't
And
until he was like a few months old where it started to get better.
okay.
Um, but yeah, I just felt like a lot of things that I did was just unnatural for the first.
Right. And why were you being pressured for formula? Was your breastfeeding journey in that first 6 weeks really tough, or was it just something that people were like, give the baby formula and that was it?
Other people wanted to feed the baby, other people wanted to keep the baby.
Okay.
So pressuring me to give him formula so that he
They
wouldn't be
can.
attached to my breast.
Okay. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that's so sad. That's so sad.
it is.
Ugh.
But you live and you learn. And honestly, like I do regret it and I think about it a lot to this day. But I try and focus on my relationship with him now. I mean,
Yeah.
he's almost 5, so
Mhm.
he probably doesn't remember most of that stuff, at
Yeah.
least not in the front of his mind,
Yeah.
consciously. It might be a little embedded in the subconscious, but
Mhm.
I just try and do better every day.
Yeah.
Even back then, like all I knew was yelling and whipping.
Mhm.
So that's what I did at first. And then when I started getting into gentle parenting and realizing how traumatizing that is, not only to him, but to me as
Mm.
well, it was just like, okay, something's got to give. I got to stop
Yeah.
this. Like, I just got to change everything. So I
Mhm.
started like diving into research on natural birthing, water birthing, home birthing,
Mhm.
gentle parenting, all of that.
Mm.
'Cause me and my partner, we had actually decided we wanted another child a few
Okay.
years later.
Mm.
And we actually started planning for our second. And we were supposed to wait until I was done with massage therapy school,
Okay.
but it got close to the end, and I was like, if I get pregnant now, I won't technically have the baby until I'm done with school. So how about we just go ahead and try? And that's where my journey really like kick started, when I was in massage therapy school, because I'm going to school for something holistic. So that kind
Mhm.
of really catapulted me into a whole holistic lifestyle.
Mm.
Um, so once I actually did get pregnant with her, I just knew I wanted to do things differently. And I told my partner from jump, like, I'm not birthing in a hospital.
Mm.
Like, I need you to just support me and respect that, because I
Mhm.
don't want to go through what I went through last time. And there are some things that I'm not negotiating when it comes to postpartum. Like, I definitely want to breastfeed. I don't want to introduce formula. And if I do, it'll be months later,
Mhm.
We'll just have to kind of play it by ear. But I knew then, like, I want to do everything that I can possibly do naturally.
Yeah.
So for her, me and a friend of mine were actually pregnant at the same time.
Okay.
And she had already had a doula that she found. And she introduced me to the doula. And that's kind of how I found my doula when it came to having a home birth and
Mhm.
everything like that. So we kind of connected, we talked, we met a couple times, and we just kind of knew that it was right. And she told me, she
Mhm.
was like, I see it happening for you. I really can. I was
Yeah.
just super excited, because it was nerve-wracking, but it was exciting at the same time, because like I had
Mhm.
been through birth before, but never that type of birth. So I was like, oh my
Right.
gosh, what if something goes wrong? And I did share with people that I was going to do a home birth. And I did kind of let some comments and some questions get to me and kind of make me doubt myself. But towards the end, my doula, she really would just give me life and feed me words of encouragement.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to listen to you and not everybody else, because she was in her 30s, her very first child. She did a home birth, a water birth. And I'm just like, if you can do it, you're inspiring me. I could do it too. Like,
Mhm.
let's do this.
Mhm.
So when it came time to birth her,
Wait,
everything.
sorry. Was
uh,
this when you're saying you were having a home birth with this baby? Was it just yourself and having that doula, or did you hire a medical midwife as well to be there?
No. I
Oh,
knew for a fact that I did not want a midwife to be there. Like, I didn't
okay.
want any medical professional to be there,
Okay.
because even the midwives are taught the same way that the
Yeah.
doctors are. They're not
Mhm.
taught on a more holistic level.
Okay.
Um, but there are midwives. I know that there are midwives out there who kind of throw out the medical stuff, and they are more holistic. But I didn't even want to take the chance. I was just like, it's just
Okay.
gonna be me, my husband, and my doula, my
Oh,
mom and his mom. That's all that I
okay.
wanted there.
Okay, so then you had a wild pregnancy then, completely free of the medical system, or did you tap
Yeah.
into that when you needed slash wanted to go there?
So for that pregnancy, when it came to prenatal care, I went to 5 appointments total.
Okay.
I did 2 ultrasounds, one to find out the gender in the early stages. I was maybe like 13, 14 weeks. And another ultrasound, 20 weeks, the anatomy scan, just to
Yeah.
make sure 10 fingers, 10 toes, all your organs is growing. And after that, I just kind of went to my second to last appointment, where they did the GBS, the Group
Mm.
B strep.
Yeah.
I actually tested positive for GBS,
Yeah.
and I was recommended to go to the pharmacy and get antibiotics for it.
Mm-hmm.
And at that same appointment, I asked her to do a membrane sweep. I was 40 weeks actually on the dot, 40 weeks and 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in and I asked her to do a membrane sweep. And that's when she told me, she was like, oh, you tested positive for Group B strep. And
Mm.
I'm like, well, why didn't y'all call me and tell me this? And she was like, oh, we figured we just tell you for your next appointment. And I was like, but I haven't been coming regularly, so why not just call me? And
Yeah.
she was like, oh, well, we're busy. It's fine. Just what pharmacy do you want me to send your prescription to? And she sent it out. I ended up leaving the appointment that day after the membrane sweep. So basically, if you want to be technical, I feel like this wasn't a fully natural birth because of that.
Okay.
I did a membrane sweep.
Mm.
Um, and I actually went into labor that night.
Okay.
Yes. And it
Mm-hmm.
was funny because like I genuinely tried to go to Walgreens to get the prescription, but it wasn't ready. And then I tried again and it still wasn't ready. And at this point I was just like, okay, I'm ready to go home. I don't even want to like, can you hear me? I feel like it's lagging.
Yeah. No, I can hear you. Yeah.
It's like moving slow on mine. Is everything
It's fine on this end though. Like it's coming through clear.
okay, good.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I genuinely tried to go and get the prescription, but it just didn't work. And I ended up
Mm-hmm.
going home and I was like, I'll just come back out tomorrow. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. I ended up going into labor that night. So I was like, I guess I'll just be doing it without it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I was so ready for this. It's not even funny. No, it is actually very funny. I blew up the pool 3 weeks before I had even gone into labor. I used to sit in the pool and meditate and like picture me giving birth in the pool,
Mm.
like trying to manifest it.
I love
But it
that.
worked. And like I just had like this whole space created for the birth, like just to kind of mentally prepare myself for what was to come.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I ended up going into labor that night.
Mm-hmm.
Um and early into the morning is where she was born. So I went into labor around 11 p.m. and it didn't start getting intense until like 1 or 2. And it's funny because my husband wasn't home that time either. He had just left that night to go out of town.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, don't you go into labor without me. I was like, I'm not, I promise. 3 or 4 hours later, I'm calling him and he's like, are you in labor? Like, that was the first thing he asked me. And I was like, how'd you know? He was like, I knew she was gonna try and come of all days on today when I'm not there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you tell her to wait, I'm coming.
Aw.
He ended up making it. And it was funny because I just knew my mom was actually there. Because my husband left, I called my mom and I was like, hey, can you come sit with me? Like, just in case something happens. So she came that night and she was with me, and my husband wasn't. So when I realized I was in labor,
Mm-hmm.
I told her. Now, my mom, she's an anxious person, sweet as can be. She's a Cancer. She's very nurturing. She knows what to do, but she's very anxious.
Mm-hmm.
So when I told her I was in labor, she was just like, she tried to stay calm, but I can tell like there were like little things that she did that I knew like she was worried.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I told her, I was like, I just want to go take a bath right now, just to kind of prepare and like just rest and like slow it down so that Kenny can have time to come home. And I'm in the tub. I kid you not, this lady was standing in the doorway just watching me in the tub. And I'm like, I'm like, Mama, you all right? She was like, are you all right? And I was like, I'm fine. You can go fill up the pool with hot water. I mean, you can go do something. You don't have to stand here and watch me, Mama. I'm good. It's the
Mm.
early stages. She was like, I know, but I'm just nervous. I've never done anything like this before.
Mm. Oh, that's so sweet though.
It was hilarious though, because she actually told me a story about her in labor with me and how her mom was annoying her,
Mm.
just trying to be there for her. And I was like, you remember that story you told me about Granny? And we both just we both just bust out laughing. It
Aw.
was hilarious, but it was a beautiful moment for us. I do feel like our relationship has always been rocky,
Mm.
and going through that experience together just brought us closer. It
Oh,
really
that's
did.
beautiful. Wow.
Thank you. So once my husband got home, he just kind of hopped in and started getting things ready. My doula made it, his mom made it, and we were all just trying to get the pool ready. So basically, everybody was doing their thing. I was laboring. My husband, he would come in every now and then to check on me, push on my back, see if I needed anything. But I really just kind of labored alone while everybody else set up a space for me to actually birth.
Mm.
Um, when it started to get really intense, I moved into our bedroom and started laboring in the bed. And then I knew it was time. So I was like, is the pool ready yet? And they were like, no, not yet. And I was like, I think it's time.
Mm.
So I went into the room where the pool was, and I just got in regardless, and it was kind of cool, like the
Mhm.
water itself. Everybody was trying to boil pots of water and get the water warm, and I'm just like, this isn't gonna work. So in my head, secretly, like I knew she was right there.
Mm.
I held her in. Like forcibly held her in.
Oh.
And that's when it really became painful. Labor itself has never really been a painful thing in my experience. It's always just been an uncomfortable feeling. But when I held her in, I
Mm.
was screaming at the top of my lungs because it hurt. But
Yeah.
I mean that kind of you'd expect that. Like you're going against your body and your baby. You're trying to force your baby to stay in.
Mhm.
And it actually, later on in life, I realized that there are some nurses who will tell you to hold in your baby and wait for the doctor to come.
Yeah.
And I realized that that's kind of what I was doing. So even though this birth was natural at home in water, there were still like a couple medical ties to this birth,
Mhm.
especially like with my mentality, because I didn't know what to expect. I was kind of like one foot in, one foot out, but more in, right? Because I didn't cave, I didn't go to the hospital, I didn't take any medicine or anything at home. I really just labored and breathed through it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So finally, I don't remember who it was. Somebody came in the room and poured warm water. My husband started stirring the pool around. And I said, okay, that's warm enough. I'm ready. I turned around and I was
Mhm.
like this on all fours. I pushed once and her whole body came out in one
Wow.
push. Like she was ready. I
Yeah,
was
she
holding
was
her this long. She was
waiting.
like, girl, I'm ready. And
Wow.
it was so beautiful because in that moment, the only people who were in the room was me, my husband, and our son, our firstborn son. He was in the pool with us. Like it was like we were all in the pool together. So it was like this beautiful thing of us all welcoming in our newest member.
Mhm.
And like I realized my son like was kind of scared but intrigued at the same time. Like he was
Mhm.
just kind of like behind my husband, looking behind his leg, and he was just kind of like worried but
Mm.
intrigued. He was
Yeah.
like, "What's going on? Like his mommy's having the baby." It was just so beautiful, like to have him watch that, and even to this day, like you can ask him about it, and he still remembers.
Oh,
Like we
wow.
talk about it all the time. Yeah,
And how old was he when that second baby was born?
2.5.
Okay, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I know, right? And it was just a beautiful experience overall, and I'm just grateful for it.
Mhm.
Um, but the third time around,
So can I
yeah,
just
I
ask a
wasn't.
quick question?
Go ahead.
Because you said that you're RH negative and the first
Mhm.
pregnancy you had the RhoGAM shot. Did
I
that come
didn't take it
up?
for the second one.
You didn't take it for the second one. Okay,
They
but
they
like
tried to get me to do it.
they did.
They
Okay.
asked me about it, but
Mm,
I was like, "No, I don't think that's necessary." And the doctor was like, "Is there any specific reason why?" And I was like, "Well, is there a reason why I absolutely need it?" And she
mm,
was like, "Well, in the event that your bloods would mix this, that, and the third." Like once she said that, I kind of just tuned out. I was like, "Okay, well, if it's a possibility
mm,
and it's not a guarantee,
mm-hmm.
then maybe I just don't need it."
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, I can respect that. And I was like, all right.
Okay.
And nothing happened. Nothing
Oh,
went bad.
yeah.
Even with me being diagnosed with group B strep,
Mm-hmm.
again, didn't take the antibiotics, nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
So once that birth happened and I experienced it, I kind of completely switched off the medical side. And I was like, this next baby is definitely going to be like, I'm not inducing, I'm not taking no tests, I'm
Mm,
not doing anything, I'm not drawing my blood or anything.
right.
The
So then
most
what
I'll
was oh,
the most
sorry.
I'll do is an ultrasound just to make sure the everything's all right. The anatomy
Mhm.
scan.
Then how was this second postpartum experience for you? And I meant to ask on the first time as well, your placenta, what happened? How did you birth your placentas in both of those births? If you just want to kind of backtrack to the first and then go to the second.
So for the first, I wouldn't really know because I
Mhm.
was drugged up and numb. I believe that they just yanked it out.
Mhm.
Because my husband told me that they pulled it out and we just don't know what happened to it. You know, the hospitals
Mhm.
they'll keep it if you
Yeah.
don't ask about it, if you don't stand up. Like I didn't know anything about it, so I just didn't think anything
Mhm.
of it.
Mhm.
The second birth, it was completely different.
Mhm.
I was like, no, she's keeping it until it falls off.
Oh,
Um, so we did a lotus birth for her, and I still have her placenta. Yes,
wow.
it's in our freezer. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with it. My husband, like, he's asked me about doing the encapsule, like making them into pills. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, if it's been in the freezer for a while, you shouldn't. You can,
Okay.
if you encapsulate it, it needs to be within the first kind of few hours up to, I think the latest I've heard is like past 3 days, as long as it stays chilled. But once it's been put in a freezer, you don't want to defrost it and then
Okay.
encapsulate it. Yeah.
Well, that's a good excuse. Thank you. But all just aside, I was actually considering like turning it into fertilizer and maybe
Oh.
even burying it on our land, just like to
Mm.
have it, like to give back to the earth. So
Mm-hmm.
I still have hers, our third, and our fourth. Like I have three placentas in our freezer. I don't really know what to do with.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I want to turn it into fertilizer, but how do I do it? So like I'm still learning. We'll get
Well, you
there.
could, like, if you wanted, you could or defrost it, thaw it, and then dehydrate it so that it comes into the powder, and then you could use it for your fertilizer in that way, which would be really beautiful. Like you said, to give it back to the earth. That's always, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely want to start a garden. So I was like, that'll be good.
Hmm.
It'll be very nutrient.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, quick question for the second baby's placenta. Do you know the time frame that it took between baby being born to placenta being born?
3 hours.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, totally normal.
I felt like it was the longest 3 hours. I was like, this is worse than labor. I was like, I just want to be done.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
so for the
And oh, sorry, and one more thing. You're
good,
breastfeeding with this baby. Did you fully breastfeed this baby, no formula this time, like you
my
said you
second
wanted?
baby,
Mm-hmm.
I did. I breastfed her up until I realized I was pregnant again.
Okay.
So I actually got pregnant very quickly. I got pregnant 5 months after having my second. Yeah, it was
Wow.
unexpected. It was quick. It was just like, great. Now I have to breastfeed and be pregnant. And I was like, I don't think I can do both. Like mentally, I just wasn't there. And I know you asked about the depression. So at first, I was in bliss.
Mm,
Okay. I was very ecstatic, happy.
mm,
I know I shouldn't have, but the very next day after giving birth, I was up cleaning house, singing, dancing. I was feeling so good. My doula came over and she was like, "You need to sit down. What are you doing?" I was like, "But I feel so good. I feel so empowered. I feel like I can climb a mountain right now." And then she had to
mhm,
remind me, like, "You just gave birth.
mhm,
Lay down."
mhm,
And it did kind of start to get to me like around the time I found out I was pregnant because I was like, wow, I just had a baby and now I feel like I have to give up breastfeeding because my mental can't take it.
mm,
Um, and then on top of that, it was just like I just had this baby and
mm,
I feel like I'm trying like I gotta prep for another one. And it's like I feel like I'm gonna lose all the time with this baby. Like it's just
mhm,
not gonna be the same. And honestly, it wasn't. Like I feel like her first year went by so fast that I can barely remember some of it.
mhm,
But like still, like I take what I know and what I've learned and I just try and apply it now. So she's
mhm,
2 now
mhm,
and she is the most intelligent thing that I've ever met. Like
mm.
and her birth chart, I've actually been getting into astrology too.
Okay.
She has so many placements in Aquarius. It's not even funny.
Oh.
This girl is the embodiment of an Aquarius. She is free spirited to the fullest. You cannot
Mm,
tell this girl anything. And
mm,
I was like, you know what? It's probably the way she was born too. Like, very,
mhm.
like, she's just an empowered child, period.
Wow. Wow, I love
She's
that.
she's gonna be something when she gets older. I mean, she's already something.
Mhm, mhm.
So yeah. Um, I don't know, like it was just a very different experience. But like I said, once I went through everything, I was like, yeah, this third birth is gonna be the real deal.
Okay.
Let's get into that one.
Yeah.
My third birth, 5 months postpartum, I realized I was pregnant. So around 6 months, like around that time, I started weaning her, and around 6 or 7 months is whenever she fully stopped.
Mm.
I put her on formula, but not the traditional formula that I had my first on. I actually switched to a plant-based formula that I found because at this point I was transitioning plant-based as well. And that's another thing too. Like during my second pregnancy, I was just a completely different person, especially
Mm.
health wise. I
Mhm.
exercised a lot more. I ate a lot better, more plant based. So I just felt like I just took better care of myself during the second pregnancy. And I carried that into the third.
Mm.
So once I realized I was pregnant, I was like, okay, I guess the first thing should be to focus on my body, how I feel, just because I just gave birth to another one. So I was like, let me just make sure I'm taking good care of myself. Now,
Yeah.
I wasn't taking as good care of myself as I was like with my second pregnancy, but it was still better than my first.
Mm.
So I didn't really gain too much for the third pregnancy. I didn't really have a lazy pregnancy. I did like move around a bit, but towards the end, I did get lazy a little bit, just a little bit. 'Cause I was like, having two small children and being pregnant is a lot to handle.
Mhm.
So I just kind of allowed myself to rest on the days when I knew that I needed it. I actually only went to 3 doctor's appointments for my third. One was for the initial checkup, basically to prove that I was pregnant.
Yeah.
The second was the anatomy scan, and the third was just to make sure he was head down,
Okay.
right? So other than that, like I didn't really go to the doctor. I didn't take any tests that time. I didn't do a membrane sweep or anything. I was again 40 weeks and 3 days when I went into labor for my third. So I thought that was
Mhm.
kind of funny. The second and third birth was both 40 weeks, 3 days.
Yeah.
So his birth was very spontaneous. I knew he could be coming very soon. It was like 8 o'clock at night. No, it was 6 o'clock, right? Let me start there. And I just started thinking to myself, like, I feel like tonight might be it, but I'm gonna keep it to myself.
Mhm.
8 o'clock came and I started feeling the Tony Braxton contractions, right? That's what I call them. It's a little joke.
I love
Um,
that. No, that's so much better. Tony Braxton contractions. I love that.
so I started feeling those, but they felt a little different,
Mm.
like, the false ones feel like, oh, this is nothing, and the real ones feel like, oh, this could be something.
Okay.
So I started feeling those contractions around 8, and I was like, yeah, this could be it. I'm not gonna tell nobody. I'm gonna keep it to myself. So 10 o'clock, I'm like, I'm ready for bed. Let me just go sleep.
Mm.
It was 1 o'clock in the morning. Um, I felt like this incredible movement and jerk in my belly that woke me up out of my sleep.
Mm.
But I didn't fully wake up. I was just like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, I heard and felt a pop within my body. And I just yelled out to my husband because he wasn't in the bed. I was like, I'm looking around. I'm like, where is he? So I'm yelling. I'm like, come on. And he helps me up out of the bed. And nothing, like I didn't feel any liquid or anything. So I thought in my head, like my water broke, but I'm like, I don't feel anything. So I
Mm.
go to the restroom. I use the bathroom. Nothing still, like nothing abnormal. So I lean forward to get up, and like you could hear like liquid, like just kind of flush out of me. And I'm like, I'm not urinating. So what's going on?
Mm.
And I looked up at my husband. I'm like, yeah, I'm in labor. My water just broke. So I called, so I called my doula and I told her. She was like, "Oh wow, let me get my things. I'm on my way." I ended up laboring a lot better this time. Now, so for my second birth, a lot of my labor was spent on all fours
Mhm.
and on a yoga ball. This labor, I was walking around the entire house. Like I was moving. I was
Mm.
taking advantage of the fact that I'm home, I'm free, and I can move.
Mm.
So what I ended up doing, I was just like walking around the house. I would stop and have a contraction, let the water just kind of go out onto the floor. And
Mm.
then I'd literally squat into like a deep sumo squat and then clean it. Like I was trying to use that as a way to progress the labor. Like,
Okay.
let me just do this. Like, I
Mm.
feel like this will help it. And it really did.
Mm.
Because at 1 is whenever my water broke and the baby was born at 2:30.
Oh, wow.
90 minutes.
Wow.
90-minute labor. We didn't even have time to get the water ready. I wanted another water birth.
Mm-hmm.
We had the pool itself wasn't even set up. We
Mm.
had it, but it just wasn't like blown up. So while I was laboring, my husband was actually trying to get that together
Mm.
until like the pool was ready, the water was in it. He just started boiling the very first pot of water. When I got onto the couch, and the children, at this point, I had woken up the children too because I wanted them to be present.
Mm-hmm.
So my oldest being 3.5 and my youngest being a year and a half, they were kind of running around the house, didn't know what was going on. They were just happy to be up at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Um, but my son though, like he knew what was going on because I told him, like, mommy's in labor. Do you remember when mommy was in labor for Daya? And he kind of explained it to me, and I was like, yeah, like that.
Mm.
So I was like, are you gonna help mommy? And he was like, yeah. So I was like, bring me a bottle of water. Bring me a pillow. So he brought me a bottle of water. He brought me a pillow. He was like, you need anything
Oh.
else? I was like, no, I'm good. And like they were just running and playing. And I'm on the couch on all fours. I didn't have anything on other than a bra. And my husband, I don't know why. My husband wears glasses.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't have his glasses on. So he decided to turn the light on and start looking for his glasses.
Oh, no.
Right. And he found them, put them on, looked over at me. I'm on all fours at this point. So like you could see everything. He looks over at me. He's like, oh my God, Tress, I could see his head.
Wow.
So I was breathing through a contraction. I was like, I know, just catch him. And so he came over with a towel. I pushed twice and he came out.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And I
Wow.
think it was beautiful for the second and third birth. My husband was there to literally like guide them out and give my
Oh,
children to me. Like that was just so beautiful.
yeah.
Now for the third, he caught my son, but he had to hold him for a minute because I was just like on all fours, shaking
Mm.
uncontrollably. I was like, just give me a minute,
Yeah.
just give me a minute. And once I flipped over, he gave him to me. And at this point, my doula hadn't even made it to the house yet.
Okay.
Right. So it
Mm.
was just me, my husband, and the children. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
nobody else. 5 minutes after he placed the baby on me, my doula showed up. She was like, oh, you had the baby? I was like, yeah, let's get this placenta out. And it took 4 hours for the placenta to come. Like it took longer for the placenta to come than the baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what I was like getting annoyed at this point. I was like, come on, the baby came in 90 minutes and the placenta is taking hours. Like, what is going on? I actually have like videos on my Instagram where you can like see the look on my face. Like I was just over it. I was really just over it. But once I like dropped the placenta, we had our little herb bath and
Mm.
everybody settled down. And again, another lotus birth.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, just let it stay on until it fell off.
Oh.
The only thing though with this time, I believe my son kicked it off. Like I watched him. So like it was the third day and it was like really brittle.
Mm-hmm.
He was kicking
Mm.
and he kicked one good time and it just popped off.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, is that safe? He does have a herniated belly button because of that though.
Okay.
So that was the only thing that I was like skeptical about because I was like, once it started drying and getting stiff, I was like, how do you manage this? But I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna just let it fall off on its own. But it was just crazy because it's just completely different from what you know.
Yeah.
Like when you're in the hospital, like I said with my first birth, placenta, what are you
Mm-hmm.
talking about? I'm not gonna say I didn't know what it was, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know, like, for one, that I had the right to keep it. For two, that it was so important that it should have stayed attached. For
Mm.
three, like I wasn't worried about it like at all. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even realize they had pulled it out of me after the birth. I mean, I
Yeah.
was numb from the waist down, so I didn't feel anything.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. And then this baby, your breastfeeding journey, was that easeful and
Yes, it was. And I was so grateful. I breastfed him for almost 9 months.
okay.
I realized I was pregnant yet again. I've learned I was pregnant around 8 months, but I was like, I'm not gonna stop just because I'm pregnant this time.
Okay.
So it would like I noticed like I lost a good bit of weight and like I just felt so drained and tired. I was like, I can't keep doing this. So around 9 months, I was like, let's switch you over to formula, plant-based. I'll try and give you the breast every now and then. I ended up drying out very quickly. I was probably malnourished, didn't have enough to support me and the baby and a breastfed baby. So, but I mean, 9 months was longer than 5 months, and it was definitely longer than 6 weeks. So I felt very grateful to have had that opportunity. And with the fourth baby, with this baby, I'm hoping that I can definitely breastfeed up to 2 years. Like, I've been thinking about it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna stop whenever she's a year, because like we're planning for this to be our last one for a while.
Okay.
And I was just like, once I stop breastfeeding, like I'm free. But then I thought to myself, it's like, I don't want to be free. Like, I just want to enjoy this because it could be the last time. So let me just, whenever she stops, whenever she's ready, whenever I'm ready, whenever we're ready, we'll stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you. So into the fourth pregnancy, this baby was the wildest one. I went to 2 appointments, 2. The anatomy scan and to prove that I was pregnant. That was it. Like, I went to an appointment to ask for a note for a chiropractor, basically, and they were like, oh, well, we can't give you a note because you haven't come to any of your appointments. We need you to draw blood first, and then we can give you a note.
That's crazy.
Like, okay, I'm just gonna find a chiropractor who doesn't need a note. Like, I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but I'm not about to play with y'all. Y'all not about to play with me. I'm not about to get my blood just for me to get a note to go see a chiropractor. Like, y'all are crazy. So that was one thing too. Like, that was actually my very first time seeing a chiropractor ever in life.
Okay.
And it's amazing. So to anybody out there, if you want to consider a chiropractor, please do it. Have you ever been to a chiropractor before? You should do it if you haven't. It's great.
Okay.
And it definitely made me feel a lot better as far as being in alignment with my body during the pregnancy too. Because one of my hips was thrown out of place. So I think that really helped to kind of ease the labor and everything towards the end. So yeah, I really just took care of my body by drinking herbal tea. Also prenatal vitamins. I didn't take any type of prenatal vitamin during my second, third, or fourth pregnancy. I just drank tea the entire time. Red raspberry leaf, red clover, nettle, and it was something else. Fennel.
Okay.
So yeah, I just took that basically, and like protein shakes in between, like whenever I felt like I needed more energy. And of course, I was aiming towards a more plant-based diet. So I feel like I took a better care of myself for all 3 of the pregnancies compared to my first. So let's get into this fourth birth, because this one is the wildest, the craziest, and honestly, it was like a deeper spiritual like thing going on behind closed doors. So last year was my very first time ever going to a reader, a card reader.
Okay, yeah.
She's the one who told me that I would be pregnant come December. So like, I wasn't going for that, but like she just kind of was telling me things, and she was like, by December you'll be okay. You'll be pregnant, but you'll be okay. And I was like, lady, what are you talking about? I was like, whatever. December came around, December 7th. I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. And every other thing that this lady said happened. So I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna have to go back to you like whenever I need to. So I had like this whole spa day plan for me towards the end of my pregnancy. It was really in July. That last week of July is whenever I originally set everything to happen. But I was like in my head about it. I was like, well, I want it to be fresh. I want my hair to be fresh. I want my nails to be fresh. I want my massage to be fresh right before I have my baby.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me push the appointment back like a week. So I did. That was the mistake that I made, because that day, like So where I live, I'm 2 hours away from my hometown,
Okay.
right? The person who I go to for my hair and for my massages is back at home. So I traveled out there the night before. Like I felt these pains, but they didn't feel like any contractions that I had ever felt in my life. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and this is my fourth pregnancy. So I'm like, I don't know what this is. Maybe it's not labor. I don't know. Cause this doesn't feel like labor. It was just too easy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The next day, like I woke up and I told my husband, I was like, babe, maybe you should come with me because I was feeling something last night and I don't really know what it was. And he was like, well, speak now because we got to get ready. We got to go. And I was like, I think I'll be all right. That was
Okay.
my first warning sign. Like I should have just listened then and there. I should have like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you could come with me. So I ended up going out there by myself. So I'm driving 2 hours away from home by myself, 38 weeks pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way out there, I had an appointment with my reader to do another card reading.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were on the phone, the first thing she told me, it had been a while since I had spoken to her. She was like something about me being pregnant. She said, you're either pregnant right now, maybe you don't know it. I put the phone where she could see, and I was like, I definitely know that I'm pregnant. I'm 38 weeks, I'm ready to give birth. And she was like, oh, that's beautiful. When's your due date? And I told her August 14th. That's my birthday too. And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, I don't think you're going to make it to your due date. You might have this baby next week. And then she kind of paused and she was like, maybe even this weekend. And this was Friday,
Okay.
whenever she told me this. And I was like, no, no, it's not going to happen this weekend because you see, I'm on my way to my hometown to get my hair done, my nails done. I'm getting a massage. And you know, the best part? I've never done a maternity photo shoot for any of my pregnancies. I had
Okay.
one scheduled and paid for that weekend as well. So
Mm-hmm.
like I had like the whole 9 yards. Everything was just I was just trying to look good. I was trying to be living my best life.
Yeah.
I'm sure I was looking good being pregnant, right?
Mm.
And she gave me a look. She gave me a weird look, like, okay, whatever you say. And I just kind of ignored it. Then
Mm-hmm.
she asked me, she was like, who's Marcus? I mean, she was like, who's Marcus? I was like, that's my dad. And she was like, oh, okay. So she did the read and she basically does past, present, and future. And she showed me the cards. The cards landed the exact same way every single time.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And she was telling me, she was like, I think you should take advice of doctors and be cautious of this birth because there's death all around you and your baby. Like the cards, the way that they read for me. And
Mm.
she was like, this labor, this birth is going to be very dangerous. And I think that you should just listen to the doctors. And if they tell you not to do a natural birth, then don't do it naturally.
Whoa, that's a pretty strong thing to say.
Yeah. So I honestly started to get worried. And I kind of thought to myself, I was like, well, how am I supposed to take advice from people who I don't even see? I haven't seen
Mm-hmm.
a doctor since I was 20 weeks pregnant. So what advice am I supposed to be taking? What's going on? Um, she asked me how far away we lived from a hospital if I wanted to do a home birth. And I told her about 20 minutes. She told me that I need to be at least 4 minutes away from a hospital. And I don't know why she said that, but I was just like,
Mm.
okay, you know, I kind of just brushed it off.
Yeah.
But she did tell me at the very end of the reading, she was like, just trust your intuition, trust your body,
Mm-hmm.
ask for a sign, ask for guidance. You know, I'm going to pray for you, pray for yourself, things like that. And we ended our conversation.
Okay.
So I managed to get a massage done. And this girl who I go to see to get my massages done, we've been friends since massage therapy school.
Mm.
And we're very close. So whenever she was giving me my massage, I told her about my card reading. And
Mm-hmm.
she told me, she was like, well, I had a dream about you a week ago. And I was like, tell me about your dream.
Mm-hmm.
So she told me, she was like, well, you were out here. you were at your dad's house and you went into labor, but nobody was around you. So you called me. And she was like, for some reason, your mom wasn't answering the phone for you and your dad wasn't home. So you called me and you asked me to come help to deliver your baby. And come to find out, Tress, you had twins.
Oh, wow.
Right. So this is her dream. And my heart was like pounding at this point because throughout my entire pregnancy, I kid you not, like my belly was so big that I thought that I was having twins because it's the biggest my belly had ever been. I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of a smaller frame woman, like this way. So like it didn't look right to me. I was like, it gotta be like a really, really big baby, or I definitely have twins.
Yeah.
And my third, though, let me say this, my third was 8 pounds, 12 ounces when he was born.
Okay. Yeah.
And my belly was bigger for my fourth pregnancy than it was for my 8 pound, damn near 9 pound baby.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So I was just like, maybe it is twins. What if your dream means something? Because she's very intuitive too. Like my friend,
Mm.
like she's on point with it. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like it just caught me off guard. My heart was pounding the entire time. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, what if I have twins? And like for my actual, like for the only ultrasound that I did for my fourth baby, she didn't want to show her face. The
Okay.
doctors couldn't catch her face and they couldn't catch her heart. I told them I didn't want to know the sex of the baby. So I don't even know if they saw what she was at that point. I knew she was a girl because my
Mm-hmm.
reader told me for one, and
Mm.
I was manifesting a girl. Like I was telling myself, like, it's a girl. Every
Mm-hmm.
time somebody asked me, like, it's a girl. It's a
Mm-hmm.
girl. I didn't know because I didn't get an ultrasound to tell me that it was a girl, but I knew it was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Intuitively, you knew. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't know. Like I just figured, like, what if that wasn't all they didn't catch? They didn't catch
Mm.
her face and her heart. What if they didn't catch a whole baby back
Yeah.
there?
And it happens. Yeah, it happens.
It does. So I was nervous at this point. And after my massage, we went to eat out. And an old childhood friend of mine who I haven't seen in years worked at the restaurant that we went to eat at.
Mm.
And she sat down and we talked for a while. And she told me her sister's horror story of her giving birth in a hospital.
Oh God.
And I was like, I thought to myself, I was like, thank you, God, for this confirmation because I'm not going to a hospital to give birth. I don't care what that reader said. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like everything that she says is always on point, but sometimes you have to read between the lines.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm just gonna go with my own gut feeling and intuition. And what my friend just told me
Mm-hmm.
is basically God telling me you don't need those people because
Yeah.
they're gonna do something horrific to you if you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I didn't. So I ended up chilling with my friend for a while, and I ended up going to my father's house, Marcus.
Mm.
Now it was around 7 o'clock. Me and him were outside just talking. And the same weird contraction feelings, but not really contraction feelings that I was feeling was happening while we were having our conversation. It felt like labor, but it was just too easy to be labor. Like
Mm.
it's hard to explain. Like it didn't feel like it was coming from my stomach or my back. It felt like it was coming from deep within my pelvis. So it was
Mm-hmm.
just a little different. It was kind of like a throbbing almost, like a I don't know, it was just weird. It just wasn't how I usually dealt with birth. And it's funny because my reader told me that. She was like, "This birth is not going to be like any birth that you've ever had."
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that was very true though. So the whole time I was talking to my father, looking back on it, I was in labor. I
Mm.
was in labor and didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
So me and him were just having a conversation, and I'm noticing that they were kind of becoming consistent at this point, like every few minutes. But I was still trying to ignore them because I was like, in my head, I got a photo shoot tomorrow, so I'm
Yeah.
trying to stay pregnant for a little while longer. And it's funny because like my other two pregnancies was 40 weeks and 3 days. I started getting depressed towards the end of my pregnancy. Like, when is this baby gonna come? So this pregnancy, I had it in my head, well, this baby's not coming until 40 weeks. But
Mm-hmm.
I was 38 weeks at the time. And I was just like, I was in denial. I was in strong denial. I was like, no, this baby's not coming until I'm like 40 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, so he got hungry around 8 o'clock, 8:30. He was like, I'm gonna go get some food. So I'm like, all right, bye. I'm gonna go lay down. So I'm in bed talking on the phone with my husband.
Mm.
And like I'm telling him what I'm feeling. He was like, you're not in labor, are you? He said, do I need to leave? I was like, no, you don't need to come. And then like I started realizing, like I started checking the time. I was like, hold on, let's time them. So we
Mm.
started timing them. 9:30, I realized like I'm in labor. Like these are coming like every 6 minutes, 5 minutes. And I was also conversating with my doula as well, just letting her know what was going on too.
Mhm.
And letting her know, like, in case anything happens, I'm not even home. I'm at my
Mm.
father's house. So can you still come here if something happens? And she was like, yeah, we can make it work. So around 9:30 is when things started getting intense. And like I realized like I was in labor. And my dad came home. But he came home with a friend of his who I had never met yet. I don't know how long like they had been talking or dating or whatever, but I
Mhm.
had never even met this lady yet. So they get to the house and I didn't tell them anything. I just kind of heard them come in and I was like, let me kind of get myself mentally prepared for this because my father is a type of way. Like he's very old school. Like
Mm.
it's crazy. Like the way he is hilarious. And it's funny
Mhm.
because me and my friend who had the dream, like my massage therapist, she told me, she was like, it would be so funny if you went into labor around your dad. I can see him like Martin on that episode with the tongs and the oven mitt. I was like, Kiki, you don't know my dad because my dad will leave the house. He's gonna leave the house if I go into labor. He's gonna be like,
Oh.
all right, I'll come back when you're done.
Oh, wow.
So after like I realized him and his lady friend were home and I was in labor, I kind of ignored it for a while until my water broke. That's when I was like, okay, I have to tell somebody because this
Mhm.
is like the baby's gonna be here in a few minutes.
Mhm.
So I let them know. I was like, I'm in labor. My dad was like, what? What you
Mhm.
want me to do about it? I don't know what to do. I've never done anything like this before. And she just was staring at me quiet.
Mhm.
She just didn't know what to say. He was like, you want me to call 911? I'll call 911. And I was like, you don't have to do that. Like, I'm not going nowhere with them. I'm gonna birth this baby at your house. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Like this, we don't have a choice at this point. He ended up calling 911 anyway.
Okay.
So I'm in labor, and his lady friend, like, she was just like, I've never done anything like this before, but whatever you need, I'm here for you. I was like, okay, I need towels and I need water. So she brought me towels and she brought me water. And I knew that the poor lady was scared because she handed me the water like this.
Oh.
And I was just like, I'm glad she didn't like let it show too much. You know,
Mhm.
most people would probably be like, oh, maybe you should go to a hospital or whatever. Like she was just like, whatever you need, I'm here for you. That was the
Mhm.
type of energy that I really needed. And being that
Yeah.
that was my first time meeting her, I was like, this says a lot about you. And I think we're going to get along.
Mhm.
Like seriously.
Mhm.
Um, when 911 showed up, I was still going through labor easy.
Okay.
Um, but when like a paramedic came into the room that I was laboring in and she started putting gloves on,
Mhm.
and I turned back and I was like, you don't need to put gloves on. You don't need to touch me. You don't need to do anything.
Mm.
I've had two home births before. I know what I'm doing. Just let me birth. And I just need you to kind of wait in case something happens. And she was like, well, we can't just wait for hours until your baby comes. And I was like, ma'am, my baby is coming in a few minutes. If y'all
Mm.
don't want to wait, that's fine. Y'all came fast enough. If I need y'all, I'll call y'all. So they
Mhm.
left.
Okay.
After they left, labor was very hard. It
Mhm.
got like painful in my back. And like I said, labor has never really been a painful thing to me, but it was at this point. I
Mhm.
felt it in my back. And it was actually like I'd never felt anything like that before. It was weird.
Mhm.
It felt different from any other back labor that I've ever had, right?
Mhm.
So I just kind of dealt with it. I didn't really know what was going on, but I just said I was gonna fight through it.
Mhm.
And so I kind of just labored a little bit on the floor, on the bed, and then like a few minutes later, my baby was born. So what I told that paramedic was true. Like my baby's gonna be here in a few minutes. I know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. So like I was on the bed and something just told me to pick my leg up. So I
Mhm.
picked my leg up, and like you could see in the video that I had shared that like I was just like open and ready.
Mhm.
And once I had her, like you could see in the video where I reached down, I started to feel her and I was like, why is she bald? In my head, like I'm thinking, why is my baby bald? All that heartburn I've been feeling for the whole pregnancy. And it's like, why is she like completely bald, as smooth as a baby's bottom? It was so like I ended up setting the camera up whenever I realized like, hey, I'm close.
Mhm.
Like once I reached down and I realized like baby ain't got no hair.
Mm.
I just kind of like let her fall. Like you can even see in the video where I tried to grip her back, but she
Yeah.
came out like smooth,
Mhm.
fast. Like came out. She
Mhm.
kind of flopped down on the bed and like I started rubbing her. And I looked down and I'm like, how did she land this way? At this point, I still didn't know that she was breech. I kid you not, I
Okay.
did not know because Monday I went to the chiropractor and she told me that baby was head down. I'm a massage therapist. I know how to feel
Mhm.
myself to know if a baby is head down. I'm like, she was head down. So I
Mm.
was like, if she came out head first, how could she land the way that she did? And I
Mhm.
looked at my dad's friend and I look again at my baby. I take the phone and I look at the video. And I looked at her. I said, my baby was breech. She said, yeah. I was like, thank you for not telling me anything because I would have panicked. I
Yeah.
would have panicked. Honestly, breech has always been something that has intimidated me.
Okay.
I kid you not. It intimidates me.
Mhm.
Um, do you remember that friend I told you about who introduced me to my doula?
Yeah.
So she was actually pregnant around the time that I was again with my fourth baby.
Okay.
Um, I actually was there to help her birth her baby at home.
Aw.
So I feel like that was such a beautiful, like full circle experience. Like we've been friends for a couple years. It's
Yeah.
like she introduced me to my doula who helped me birth at home
Yeah.
naturally and taught me and inspired me a lot of things, which caused me to have another home birth, which
Mhm.
caused me to be there for her when she needed.
Aw. That's
Because she was gonna use
beautiful.
thank you. She was gonna use our doula, but
Mm.
she recommended me because I was like, I live right down the street from my friend. So I
Mhm.
was like, might as well just let me be there for you.
Yeah.
So I was able to attend her birth. I was like 36, 35 weeks pregnant,
Mhm.
big pregnant, trying to help her give birth to her baby at home. And she did such a beautiful job. Like I'm
Mhm.
so proud of her.
Mhm.
But that experience in itself kind of helped me because we would always sit down and just talk about birth. And
Mhm.
she told me, she was like, I don't know why, Tress, but I keep watching breech birth videos.
Mm,
Kid
okay.
you not. She was telling me like she stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning one night watching them.
Mm.
And she didn't know why. She thought that she was gonna have a breech baby. I ended up having a breech baby like a few
Okay.
weeks after her. So like we're very connected. Like it was crazy. Um,
Mhm.
I thought that that was beautiful. And one thing too, like the whole twin thing, she
Mhm.
also was like attached to twin births.
Okay.
But you know, we kind of all see like I've only had one baby,
Mhm.
but a friend of mine, like she kind of made me realize what if I did have twins and one was absorbed by the other? So
Oh.
like that kind of made me think about it. I was like, it makes sense. So like maybe,
Yeah, it's
but
possible. I mean,
I think
anything's possible. And if you're not getting ultrasounds where it's, the invasive technology scanning and looking the whole time, then it could be. What did your placenta look like and how long did it come out after the baby?
it actually only took less than an hour this time. It came out really fast. I
Mhm.
was very grateful for that this
Mm.
time. But the sack itself was really big. And my doula even mentioned that. She was like, well, the sack is big. She had a lot of room in there. So like, it
Okay.
was just a lot of little nitpicky clues that made me feel like that
Mhm.
was true. Also, with what my friend said happened in her dream. You know, I was at my dad's
Yeah.
going into labor. Nobody was there. And I'm
Mhm.
like, the only thing that didn't come true was the twin part. But I'm like, maybe it did, and we just don't know it.
Mhm.
Hey, like I feel like just everything about my birth was crazy. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna say this one thing too. I did mention about the card reader saying that I had to be 4 minutes from a hospital.
Right. Yeah.
In the middle of my labor, I Googled the nearest hospital from my father's house.
Yeah.
Do you know how close that hospital
It was
was?
4 minutes.
It was exactly 4 minutes. And it was like, it was
Wow.
just crazy. I like
Wow.
when I was in labor and I saw that,
Hmm.
something just came over me like a feeling of calm. Like, I'm going to be okay. We're
Yeah.
going to be okay. We're 4 minutes
Yeah.
from a hospital. She said that if I have a home birth, I have to be 4 minutes from a hospital. And I was. So I just felt a
Yeah.
little safer knowing that. And it just,
Wow.
oh no. And it felt beautiful knowing that information because she's told me personally who it is that she gets her messages from regarding me. And
Mm.
he was supposed to be my godfather in life, but he passed the year that I was born.
Oh, wow. Okay. So he's watching out for you and your children.
Yes. And yes, so like you were supposed to watch
Mhm.
out for me in life, but now that you've passed, you're still watching out for me like on the other side. And I
Wow.
felt like it was so beautiful.
That's incredible. Yeah.
And it was hilarious though that my father left. Like he really did leave.
Oh, he
Like he
left the
didn't
whole
like leave
house.
the house. Like he didn't leave. He just went outside.
Okay.
So
That's so funny though, but his friend just, just sat there and she was probably just so mesmerized, like, oh my goodness, the
yes,
baby is being born and it's just happening.
yes. So like after I birthed and like took my bath and everything, like I came out and she looked at me like she looked like she was like forgive me, like she looked like she was high. Okay. She was like very like she was just happy and like just
Hmm.
glowing. And she said, "Look, I'm so proud of you. I've never seen anything like that in my life before." She was like,
Hmm.
"I could never do what you did in that room. That was incredible." Like
Wow.
she was just like really ecstatic about it. I was like, "Yeah, thank
Mm,
you." But that was crazy. She was like, "Did you know she was breech?" I was like, "No, I really
mm,
didn't. I didn't
mhm.
know she was breech." If
Wow.
I would have known, I feel like it probably would have taken over my mind and caused me to be fearful. And
Right.
I probably would have left with the paramedics,
Mhm,
when they got there.
mhm,
So I'm glad I didn't know. I'm
mhm.
glad that it happened the way that it did because that's just the way that it was meant to. And it taught
Exactly.
me a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. And that's the beauty of surprise breech babies. Like some mothers, like yourself, don't even know that their babies are breech until they've looked back at the video or until the baby is halfway out of their body. And yeah, a lot of them say, oh, I'm really scared to have a breech baby. Before I had one, I always just thought like, "Oh, I hope this baby's head down." And then they have a breech baby and then they think, oh, it was easy because it's just misinformation and propaganda that makes us think that breech babies are so dangerous. But if you don't know it's breech or you don't care, you can still just birth this baby totally fine and naturally and normally, and it's not a big deal.
It's not. And I felt like just relieved. And then
Mm,
it felt like it was more than just a coincidence. Did you hear about what happened to the woman in Georgia?
no.
There was a woman in Georgia who had a breech baby and her baby was decapitated.
What she Oh, I think I heard this. She was birthing in hospital, right? And
Yes,
yeah, because they yank
they
on
yanked
babies.
on they yanked on the
Yeah,
baby and
and
then they
that's
tried to
why
do a C-section.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why breech birth is deemed dangerous because medical professionals didn't and don't know how to let the process happen naturally. So they try and pull these babies out, and you can't pull them out because their chins will get stuck on the pubic bone, and serious consequences like that happen. And then it was just deemed like, oh, breech babies are emergency cesareans, and it's like it's not because the woman's body is broken, it's because the medical providers that are supposed to be supporting this woman are pulling and yanking her babies out of bodies and hurting them extremely. So it's yeah, that's why breech is considered high risk. It's not because it's a high
Yes,
risk physiologic process, it's high risk because providers are damaging babies and hurting mothers. It's yeah.
yes. And it happened just like maybe 2 or 3 days after I gave birth to my baby.
Oh,
So
wow.
when I read about it, like my stomach was turning, but like honestly, I needed to hear that type of story
Mm,
because it just justified what I did was right for me and my
absolutely.
baby, because that could have
Yeah.
been me, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
that would have been so scary.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
honestly, another thing that I've always been fearful of is cesareans. I don't
Mm.
want to be cut open. Like that is so dangerous. Like
Yeah.
to women who have done it before, I salute you, but it's something that I would never want to go through. And
Yeah.
had I gone to a hospital, that's exactly what they would have done to me having a breech baby.
Yep.
So, like, just the way everything ended up playing itself out, I was
Mm-hmm.
just grateful.
Yeah.
And one more synchronicity,
Mm.
like, ever since I found out I was pregnant, I
Mm-hmm.
told my mom, my
Mm.
doula, and my husband, I don't know
Mm.
why. I just feel like I'm going to be alone when I birth. And
Okay.
every time I visualized myself birthing, I would try and do it with other people there, but it was always me outside of my body watching me birth and nobody else was around.
Okay,
I
yeah.
was like, I don't want that to happen. I want my daughter to see. And then she was older at this point. So my
Mm-hmm.
daughter is 2 now. So she definitely would have remembered,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't even get to see it. My
Mm-hmm.
husband, he was heading out to meet me,
Okay.
but by the time like he got to a gas station to gas up, I
Mm.
had already given birth.
Yeah.
So like he missed the birth of our fourth child.
Yeah.
So I was alone, but in good company, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like
Absolutely. And like you said, you had your godfather that was looking out for you. So
yeah,
it was meant to happen in this way. And that's why you have this postpartum time. So you can integrate everything that you're meant to take in from this experience.
yes.
Hmm.
It was wild. It was crazy, but I'm grateful for all of it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's so I love hearing stories like this that are just so normal, like that's what pregnancy and birth really is meant to be. It's not supposed to be scheduled and testing and this and that. It should be, I talked to a tarot reader and then I came home and my dad left and, just all of these things that happen. It's just like, it's just a part of life. So let's treat it like it's just a normal part of life. And yes, your story
Y'all
had
go
many
sit down.
synchronicities in it and lots of things happening, but that's just how it was supposed to unfold, and you followed the path and you birthed your baby in that way, and all of your children, as you said, you only knew what you knew in the times of birthing your children, and you gained more information and got smarter and wiser as you went on. And yeah, that's really incredible. I'm so proud of you for and so grateful you shared all these stories.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
just I find it crazy how different each and every one of them was. Like they're
Mhm.
very unique in their own ways, all
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it just kind of gives me more insight to kind of relate to more women.
Totally. Yeah. And that's beautiful that um, was it when you supported your friend that had her birth, was it just because you're friends, or is that something that you want to start doing, supporting more birth as you go along and I guess as your children get a bit bigger?
It's both. It's
It's both.
both. I definitely wanted to be there for her as a friend, but I definitely want to get into birth working.
Mhm.
I've been very passionate about it since
Mhm.
my second birth, my first home birth.
Mhm.
But after going through the experiences that I did, it's like I'm even more passionate now because I have more on my belt. Like I just have
Mhm.
more that I can share. I can really
Mhm.
relate. Like
Mhm.
if I were to work with women and attend these births and one were to be breached, I would kind of treat it the same way that my father's friend did. I wouldn't even let you know. I'm
Mhm.
going to sit back and let you do what you need to do because that's what needs to be done. I
Mhm.
don't need to scare you and say, hey, you got to breach baby. you know,
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, well, I hope you have a very beautiful, journey into birth work, because it's such a heart-opening place to be. It really is. And you've, like you said, you've got the experience having your own children, witnessing, so you know what's needed, how to be there and hold that space. So that's awesome.
yes. And
Mm.
I was very happy to have been there for my friend
Mhm.
in general. But having a home birth and witnessing one are two completely different things. And it was just so beautiful when she finally, like, I was waiting until she fully birthed the baby. But like when I saw the baby's head, I started tearing up. I was like, oh my God, she's really doing this. I'm really here. This is really happening. This is so beautiful. And when her baby came out, I just bawled out crying. And then her sister-in-law who was there, she bawled out crying. We were just all in there crying and huddled up together. It was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And I'm proud of her. I'm proud of me for keeping my head right. Because honestly, it made me nervous leading up to it because she had been asked me to be her doula. So like we were preparing for this. This wasn't something that she just randomly asked me at the last minute. So, you know, at first I was kind of doubting myself, like maybe I'm not ready. And I wanted my doula to be there, like our doula to be there too. But she told me, she was like, if you want to do this just by yourself, you can do this by yourself. Like you can do this by yourself. You don't need me. So I was like, okay, I'll do it.
I love
So
that.
it turned out beautiful too. A lot of synchronicities in her birth too. But I'll let her be the one to share that if she chooses to.
Wow. Yeah, thank you so much for your words. Is there anything else that you want to share with any of your pregnancy, birth stories, postpartum stories while we're still here?
Any woman can give birth naturally. You just have to believe in yourself. Don't doubt yourself. Like, trust your body, trust your intuition, build a support team, and let go and let God. I feel like that's basically how I did it. So I feel like maybe those words, somebody needs to hear those words.
Absolutely.
Like, you can do it. Don't ever let anybody scare you out of anything that your body was biologically made to do. Yes.
Yeah, so true. Thank you so much for sharing those words. Yeah, somebody's going to hear them and just, turn those lights on in their head and boom, they're just going to do it.
Yes.
One last thing, if women want to reach out to you to speak to you more personally about any of your birth experiences or just your journey kind of leading into how you supported your friend or moving into birth work yourself, how can they get in contact with you?
Instagram is my number one platform. Afro Native Hippie is my username. And I actually kind of took that from, like I told you before, like I'm African American and I'm Native American. So like I want to embody just both of that. And the business that I started for myself, for massage therapy, for birth work, for card readings, just for all things spiritual, is actually called Afro Native Essence. So
beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much. Is that the name? Do you have a website or is that a second Instagram page?
No, I don't have a website yet. Okay. Still working on it. I've been having these goals in my head, but I keep getting pregnant. So it's like off. But trust me, like we're gonna slow down. We're gonna have some time. This is my time to shine now. So like I feel like I just need to share my story, try and get myself out there more. Especially because I'm not the most outgoing person. I try to be like, I want to be that person like I used to be. But life beat you up into being shy. So.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. No, I'll have those both in the show notes, and I'm sure that your words are definitely going to be words of wisdom to many women who hear your stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sisters, so much for listening to this episode of the Free Birthing in Color podcast. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one in a primal activation session, donate to the podcast, or to have your story featured here or in the blog, go to primalwomanportal.com for all the information to do so. Did you want to connect with our guest speaker? You can find all her information linked within the show notes. And if you have time, please subscribe, write a review, and tell a friend to have a listen so that this podcast and these stories of women birthing in their total power can be shared far and wide. Don't forget to check out the show notes for information on the Earth Daughters Women's Festival, the Breach Without Borders workshop, and much more. New episodes drop every Thursday morning, So stay tuned for the next amazing story to be shared on any platform that you prefer to listen to your podcasts on, or watch these episodes on the Free Birthing in Color YouTube page. And remember, your voice and your story matters. So if you're a woman of color or an Indigenous woman who's had a wild pregnancy and or birth outside of the medical system, submit your story, because it's so important that your voice is heard and celebrated in your radical journey of pregnancy, birth, and motherhood.